Today on Stupid Fast RC, I'm going to show you how to take your new Baja from box to bashing. We're going to mix the fuel, charge the batteries, look for loose screws, run it in, and get it ready to have some fun. Alright, let's get started. Okay, welcome back, and we're going to get into the run-in procedure for the roving Baja, or Baja, depending where you're from. If you say potato, I say tomato, I don't know, whatever, something. Okay, let's see. Screws. Well, the first thing on the list is screws. You're going to need some spanners. Some spanners do come with it. In a previous video I talked about maintaining your cars, getting some of your own spanners, that sort of stuff. I'm not going to go over that again. Two kinds of thread locker. Well, it's actually quite a few different kinds, but Loctite, you're going to need some Loctite somewhere along the line. Blue is the most common, and it's 243. The numbers, it goes by numbers. 263 is a stronger Loctite than 243. The higher it goes, the harder it is to come unlocked again. So this is most commonly 243 is used. You'll see it on the bolts that come undone, especially things like pinion gears. Sometimes if you've got a four-wheel drive car, you may need to put a little bit of blue Loctite on the right hand side ones, because of the rotation of the wheels causes the nuts to come undone, and a little bit of that's going to stop that from happening. And it also really depends on the quality of the car, because sometimes the threads, the finer the thread, the harder it is for them to accidentally come undone, and you might need a bit of that. And so this Loctite goes all the way up to, oh my god, it's never going to come undone. So you want somewhere in between. You want stuff that's going to be able to get undone if you really need to, and not destroy the thread, the bolts, the heads, your tools. Okay, so you're going to go over the car, look for loose bolts and nuts, just give it a bit of a check, something that might have come undone in freight. We are going to put a little bit of oil into the two-stage air filter, and it will go on the inner stage. I'll show you that. Fuel. You're going to need some sort of mixing container. This is a container that came with it. That mixes a litre of fuel at a time. I've also got some oil, and that is enough oil for 1 litre only. Or you can go and buy bulk amounts with a handy little measuring container at the top. This is awesome because you can just unscrew this little lid if you've never done this before, and pump oil up into this little container, and then measure it out. If you get too much, you suck it back down, etc. So that's good for measuring out your oil. You will need to work out what your ratio is. In this case, this is quite a good manual. It's telling you exactly that a litre of fuel needs 40 mils of oil, and there's lots of other things that you need to read about as well. No mineral oil, 98 octane fuel, etc, etc. All things that you can read yourself when you get your Baja. I'm just going to go through the basics here. I'm going to add the fuel in there, and also a fuel conditioner. The fuel conditioner, the rule of thumb is basically fuel, once you've mixed it, shouldn't really be sitting around for more than 3 or 4 months. That said, I've had fuel that sat around a lot longer than that. Not necessarily best practice. So if you're wanting to get optimal performance, don't do that. Fuel conditioner here should preserve your fuel for a bit longer. Also makes the exhaust smell a little bit different and more pleasant than it would normally. Highly recommended. The other thing you're going to need to do is charge your battery. It does come with a charger, but I recommend that you have your own charger. I've got, a sort of fairly basic charger, and then one with a LED touch screen on it. I suggest that you get one of these anyway for your hobby, because it's important that you know the health of your batteries. This is not a LiPo battery. It's most likely, and I'm guessing here, a nickel metal hydride battery that is bigger than this. It's about 3 times the size of that, and it sits around about here somewhere in the car, and the charging port is there, right here. That's all stuff you can find out from your manual, but it's important that you give this a charge beforehand. So that's the next step. Once we've done all those things, we can go for a start. Now I'm going to do all that at once. I've told you about it. A lot of it's not rocket science, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll go for a start, and then we'll just do the running. Okay, get the air filter off. Pretty straightforward. There's a pin here. You rotate this cover through 90 degrees and pull it off. Outer filter comes off. We don't need to do anything with that. What we need is this inner filter, and I'm going to put probably about 30-40 drops of oil into this. The best way to do that is to get a plastic bag and the filter. We get our special oil that we got from Sik Hobbies. We use the approved tool for opening this bag. Yep, still working, it's still sharp, good work. We don't throw the filter on the floor and get sand in it like I just did. And yes, you should do this in a clean environment, by the way. Absolutely, no sand. You don't want sand blowing around. You don't want sand in there. I've actually left that uncovered. If we were somewhere else, I probably would have put a bag or something over that while I was mucking around. We certainly don't want any dirt inside the engine. Pretty crucial. Whole reason for having a filter, right? Okay, so couple of lines of oil around here. We don't want to overdo this because we don't want to choke the filter up, but at the same time there just needs to be a smooth film of oil all through this filter, and probably should have done that inside the bag. And then I'm just going to squeeze the oil through the filter, massage it through like that. I'm going to get myself a bit of rag so I don't get it everywhere. So massage it through. And let's have a look at how that went. No, it's not even, right? Now normally, if you've got a white filter, this is really obvious when this is right, because your white filter will turn blue. In this case, this is a grey filter, which has made our job a little bit harder. And look, I'm really going to stick a fair bit of oil in this now because it's a big filter and we're not getting anywhere. Give it a bit of a squish around. And also letting it sit for a while as well helps, because the oil will tend to spread a little bit for the filter. Also, if you let it sit for a long while, the oil is actually going to drop to the bottom. Gravity, funny like that. But here we go. And looking at this now, I'd say job done. You can see that it's shiny. The oil is spread fairly nicely through that filter. Okay, we're going to put that filter back on. And that's the filter part of it done. Now to replace that filter in the car, you want to make sure that the filter is actually on properly the whole way around, and you can rotate it a little bit on the car, but if you're having trouble, what I suggest you do, undo this little latch here and take the filter right off the car. I'm not going to do that because I'm pretty confident that it's in and it looks right to me. I have done this before, so if you're not feeling confident that it's covered, you don't want any gaps in the bottom of this filter where sand and air is just going to get straight into the engine. That's kind of going to defeat the purpose of everything we've just done. Inserting the cover is just the reverse of the removal. We're going to put the little spindle in and spin it through 90 degrees. You'll feel it click into place, and then you put that pin back in. So that's pretty straightforward. Just check again for any gaps. Job done. We talked about the battery earlier. The battery fitting you're going to need is looking like that. You'll see it's obvious. It sits in here and you just plug it in. You select nickel metal hydride on here. It's probably, you want a charge rate of anything up to sort of like 1.8 amps. I've already done this earlier. It said 3 hours in a manual, and I think that was about right. It took about 3 hours to charge. This is charged, ready to go. I've already checked that, and actually Tom did that in the previous part of the video. He's checked that the remote control works, the steering works, the throttle works. The other thing you might want to check is that the travel's correct, that it's sitting in the middle when you actually fire up your remote, that the steering is straight, and full right lock and full left lock, and trim up everything there before you obviously start it. Very important thing that I always tell everyone is you must start your car on a block. So this car, I don't know whether you can see that properly, is sitting on a wooden block. It's not going to go anywhere. Before I start it, I'm going to open the doors, make sure that there's exhaust, the exhaust is going to escape from here. Nothing is going to be sitting on the bench that's going to vibrate. If it vibrates across, then we start throwing tools around the bench, that sort of stuff. We don't want any of that bad stuff happening. I'm going to check the throttle travel to make sure that the brake locks when I put brake on, and that it's free at idle, and that we get full throttle. So they're the things that I'm going to be checking for to make sure all that goes. Then I'm going to throw in the fuel and give it a start. I've got the handy little port on the side here where I've put in my oil. A few drops of fuel conditioner. I'm going to give that a bit of a mix around. and ready to put some of this into the tank. Just checking that there's no dirt or shavings or anything in that tank before I start. You know, something could have happened accidentally at manufacture, hopefully not, but you know, it's a good idea to check. On this first tank of fuel, it's going to idle on the bench. It's not going to sit at the same revs all the time. I'm going to rev it up, speed it down, slow it up, and I don't want it to overheat. Once I've done this first tank of fuel, I'm going to let the engine cool completely off before I start again. Right, the fuel's in. There's a little primer bulb here. I'm going to press that until there's fuel in the bulb and fuel in the pipe. And when this is a return line, just checking, you can see that? Right, yes, so I want all the air to go out of that return line, and once I'm pumping through there and the bubbles have gone, I know that there's fuel in the carburetor. The next little thing that we want to push down is this choke. And, oh, of course, fairly important part. I'm going to spin this around now because that's everything we need to do over there. Oh. Now, one thing that you probably need to check, which became evident then, is that this lid is tight on the gas tank, because if it's not, fuel runs out over your toes. Nasty. Yeah, so that's obviously needs to be a little bit more tighter than I thought, and it is now. I'm going to put this on the floor now, because I don't actually want this skating around anywhere. It's a really big car. And in fact, I'm going to take it outside. In checking that our brakes or throttle is adjusted correctly, we have full throttle there, so I'm happy with that. That's working okay. Now the other thing is the brake. Now this is in neutral at the moment, and I turn both wheels at the same time, and I can see that the brakes are not on. When I push the brake forward, it's quite clear that I can't move those back wheels, so the brake is working. That means that this here is adjusted correctly. If the brakes weren't working, I'd want to tighten that up, and if the brakes were on at the mid, at neutral, at throttle neutral, if the brakes are on at throttle neutral, I'd have to back that off. I'd have to unscrew that to take the pressure off this, because these little things here, this is the brakes. Now we don't want the brakes, we want the brakes to be almost on at neutral throttle, but we don't want them to be on, because when we throttle up, the brakes have got to come right off. So as soon as I hit that throttle, you see that brake come away and get released, because if the brakes are on while we're trying to travel forward, we're going to burn out the brakes and cause unnecessary stress on the engine. We don't want to do any of that. So it's very important that this is adjusted up correctly. Okay, I'm going to try and start this now. This is exciting, this is the first time out. Pumped it up, bit of choke, and I'm looking for it to kick over a little bit. If it kicks over, then I'm going to turn that choke off. Alright, that hasn't started straight away, so I'm going to start to check for faults. I'm going to start by taking out the spark plug. I've got a spanner for that. Let's see what's going on in there. Okay, to take the spark plug out, we just take this little lid out here. Sticking by the rules, we'll have a container to put our screws in so that we don't lose anything. Alright, pop the head off the spark plug, take that out, making sure there's no dirt or anything going to get in. I'm just going to click that over and see if there's any spark on the spark plug, being careful not to shock myself. Well, that's sparking away nicely, so that just means there's no fuel in there yet. I'm going to help that along by giving it a little bit of fuel. I'm just going to drop a cap full of fuel into the cylinder head. To get the excess out, I've got a bit of rag. I'm going to put that over the spark plug hole. Just do that. If you don't put the rag over, the fuel is going to spray everywhere, and that's just to get out the excess. That should give us the right amount of fuel to fire up the engine for just to warm it up to get it running. It doesn't start the first time. I'm going to open the choke up now, because the choke is to bring fuel in. I've already got fuel in. I know there's fuel in there. I'm going to give it full throttle. Alright, that's starting to kick over now. I can hear it starting to fire. I'm actually going to take it outside because I don't want it to spray fuel all over the shed and gas the shed up, so I'm going to take it outside. But it's starting to kick over now. I can see that's going to run. I may have to prime it 1 or 2 more times, but once I've got that going, I know that I'm on the right track. Well, if you made it this far, I'm not going to make you watch me burn through a tank of fuel. The next tank of fuel will be driving slowly around out in the paddock, and then in our next video I'm going to show you how to reinforce the front end. Thanks for watching, and hope you got something out of this. Cheers.
Hi, I'm Tom from Stupid Fast RC, and today we're reviewing the Sik Hobbies badass Baja. We're actually doing something from Halloween with it, and we're smashing a pumpkin up.